But we'll jump into this matchup that Darrell Bevell takes on the Houston Texans in week 15 of the NFL. And it's important to note when looking at this matchup that both teams are on substantial losing streaks, and both teams' previous wins were against playoff contenders, with the Tennessee Titans losing to the Houston Texans in week 11, 22-13, and the Jaguars upsetting the Buffalo Bills a few weeks before that, 9-6. The Jaguars are now on a 5-game losing streak, and to make matters worse, the Jaguars have scored 17 points or less in each of their last games leading up to week 6. So from week 6 on, they have not scored 17 or more, and their last time scoring 17 or more was 23-20 win over the Miami Dolphins. So this offense has not been able to put up points. Sadly enough, 5 of their first 6 games, they did score over 17 points. So that's something to make note of. Over their last 7, the Jaguars have lost 31-7 to Seattle, beat Buffalo 9-6, lost to Indianapolis 23-17, San Francisco 30-10, Atlanta 20-14, Los Angeles Rams 37-7, and Tennessee most recently 20-0. And that 20-0 goose egg was the Jaguars' first shutout since 2009 when they lost 41-0 against the Seattle Seahawks. So not a good way for Urban Meyer to go out. I guess in his shoes, there was no good way to go out, but he left the Jaguars breaking the 6th longest active streak for not getting shut out with a 20-0 loss against a Derrick Henry-less Titans. And quite frankly, in a game where the Jaguars defense kept them in it, down 10-0 at halftime, and gave the offense every opportunity to come back, and they just simply could not put it together. The Texans' last 5 go as follows: 17-9 against Miami in a loss, 22-13 against Tennessee in a win, then 21-14 loss to New York, 31-0 loss to Indianapolis, and 33-13 loss to Seattle. That Seattle game was a lot closer in the first half. Seattle definitely pulled away towards the end, but the Houston Texans only scoring 27 combined points over their last 3 games, averaging 9 points per game over their last 3. Slow offenses here. For example, Jaguars have scored 64 points in their last 7, averaging just 9.1 points per game in those 7 games. So if you're looking at these two teams on paper, points per game for the season, the Jaguars 13.8 points per game, the Texans 13.6 points per game, which ranks 32nd in the NFL, and Jacksonville is just ahead of them at 31st. These teams are averaging under 2 touchdowns a game. That is completely embarrassing. And if you look at the defensive side of the ball, these teams are allowing points in bunches. The Jaguars allowing 26.2 points per game on defense, and the Texans allowing 27.4 points on defense, which ranks 30th, with Jacksonville at 27th. But let's take a look at the offense real quick. Davis Mills will be leading this Houston Texans team when it comes to Jacksonville on Sunday. And on the season, he has 8 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, an 81.1 rating, and 6.4 yards per attempt, which all rank pretty well compared to Trevor Lawrence's numbers on the season. And guess what? Davis Mills was drafted 67th, and Trevor Lawrence was drafted 1st overall. So when you look at the value there, Davis Mills definitely has Trevor Lawrence beat, but Trevor Lawrence's supporting cast is equally as bad, if not worse, than Davis Mills. Trevor Lawrence on the season, as you've heard by now, had a 4-interception game in week 14 against the Titans, his first 4-interception game, but he has 9 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, and just a 68.9 rating on the season. Completely embarrassing for the 1st overall pick. However, what I will say is he had 3 interceptions week 1 against the Texans and 4 interceptions in week 14 against the Titans. So half of his interceptions on the season have come in 2 games, which tells me for the most part, when he's not pressing the ball downfield and not trying to make things happen, he is protecting the ball. He is just not scoring either. It's do or die for him, I guess. Week 1 against the Texans, 3 touchdowns accompanied by 3 interceptions. Last week, 0 touchdowns accompanied by 4 interceptions. By far his worst game as an NFL player, as a rookie in this league. And when you look at some of the other rookies and what they're doing, including Mac Jones, it's difficult as a Jaguars fan to watch what's happening right now with Trevor Lawrence. Hopefully, with Urban Meyer being gone, we can see some more progress for Trevor Lawrence moving forward, because we really have to. Week 14, like I mentioned, 4 picks, 221 yards, and a 35.5 rating, averaging less than 6 yards per attempt, 5.5 to be exact. To make matters worse, James Robinson, who is the team's number 1 player on offense, best running back one of the top 10 running backs in the league in 2020, has not been playing that way over the last 5 to 6 games, albeit due to Urban Meyer benching him in favor of Carlos Hyde, who is ripping cobwebs off himself. He's so old in this league at this point. But 8 total rushing yards for the Jacksonville Jaguars in week 14 against the Tennessee Titans with a rookie quarterback. That's not going to work. If you want to look at 4 interceptions for Trevor Lawrence, take a look at the rushing stats and why this team could not get the ball moving through the air. Well, you don't have to worry about protecting against the run when the offensive line can't block. 8 total rushing yards. James Robinson, 6 carries for 4 yards is absolutely absurd. To make matters worse, another game with more than 8 penalties. I think that makes it 7, maybe 8 on the year. 9 penalties for 95 yards. This team is completely undisciplined when it comes to on the field matters. They continue to hold. They continue to block in the back. They just continue to get penalized all over the place, and it doesn't help them win, obviously, being 2-11. It's just ridiculous. As far as the receivers go for the Jaguars, Marvin Jones, 6 catches for 70 yards, but let me preface that with this. He had a 33-yard catch right before halftime, so really 5 catches for right around 37 yards in that Week 14 game against the Titans. Laquan Treadwell continues to impress me. 4 catches for 68 yards for Laquan Treadwell. Those are the offensive numbers for the Jags. We ran through what Davis Mills has been able to do. Week 14 against the Seahawks for Davis Mills was a pretty impressive game. 331 yards, 6.8 yards per attempt, and a touchdown for a 93.2 rating. However, what I will say is the Texans have allowed 37 sacks so far this season, which ranks 27th in the league. And they're going up against a Jags rush defense that has 24 sacks on the season. Not numbers to write home about. However, in week 14, the Jaguars had 4 sacks and 10 quarterback hits against Ryan Tannehill. So if they can get some of that juice and some of that power into week 15 coming back home to Jacksonville, it would be a very big win for the Jaguars to pressure a quarterback who is also a young quarterback in this league in Davis Mills. Now, the Texans' run offense will be without Rex Burkhead, who led the way in week 14 against the Seahawks, but they will have David Johnson coming back, who missed the last 2 games. However, David Johnson has not rushed for more than 40 yards one time this season in games that he played, accompanied by Royce Freeman. Royce Freeman will be playing in his 3rd game for the Houston Texans after missing his first game with the Houston Texans 3 weeks ago. He had 11 carries last week against the Seahawks, but only for 15 yards. And the real X factor to look out for is going to be Brandon Cooks, who had 8 catches for 101 yards this season. Now, that stat may mislead you. Brandon Cooks is not a 100-yard receiver consistently in this league. However, against this pass defense, Brandon Cooks is someone to look out for. This pass defense, 101.6 rating allowed to opposing quarterbacks, ranks 30th in the NFL. 7.8 yards per attempt, ranks 27th in the NFL, and 70.6 completion percentage, ranks dead last in the NFL. Not to mention only 5 interceptions from this secondary all season, which is 29th in the league. So the Texans offense through the air could have a pretty solid day against a Jaguar secondary who has struggled mightily all season. I'm not surprised by that either. Shaquille Griffin is really the bright spot of this defense, accompanied by Rayshon Jenkins over the top at safety. When it gets to the Texans pass defense, they are a lot more stout than you would actually believe, only allowing 91.4 rating to opposing quarterbacks. They have 14 interceptions on the year, which is 6th in the NFL. Count it, 6th in the NFL. And they do only allow 65.8 completion percentage, which is 16th in the NFL. So pass defense for the Texans is actually middle of the road, except for yards per attempt. They also allow 7.8 yards per attempt. Russell Wilson in week 14 against this Texans team, obviously a top 10, top 15 quarterback in the league, 9.3 yards per attempt, 115.2 rating for Russell Wilson in that week 14 game that saw the Seahawks win 33-13 over the Texans. Russell Wilson did his part. Now, the Texans pass rush does have 37 sacks. So if you're not going to protect over the top as a pass defense, your pass rush has to get home, and they have 37 sacks on the season, which ranks 5th, and they're going up against a Jags offensive line that has shown to be Swiss cheese over the last few months, with Trevor Lawrence standing upright, not as frequently as we would hope for. So expect this Texans pass rush to get home and expect the Texans pass defense to play well as well. When it comes to the rush defense, this is where the Jaguars have to win the football game. The Texans pass rush, allowing almost 5 yards per carry, which is tied for 31st in the NFL, and 22 rushing touchdowns on the season, which is 31st in the NFL. James Robinson has to get on the ground and has to get moving. And hopefully with the departure of Urban Meyer and having Darrell Bevell as the head coach with play calling, hopefully they recognize James Robinson as a key piece to this offense, and they run James Robinson as much as humanly possible. That's what the hope is. As far as the Jags rush defense, 4 yards per carry allowed, which is 5th in the NFL, but they have allowed 17 touchdowns on the ground, which is about 7 more than 3 weeks ago. 7 of those have come in the last 3 or 4 weeks, ranks 29th in the NFL. So that's something to keep an eye on as well. It's not going to be a game on everyone's television set come Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock. I'm excited. We have Thursday night football this week. We have some Saturday games as well. College bowl season is coming up too. But the Jaguars-Texans is going to be a key game when determining the NFL draft order come April. Both these teams sit at 2-11. Not sure how the rest of the season is going to shake out, but the Texans have already beaten the Jaguars once this season. If they beat them a second time, that would almost solidify the Jaguars drafting ahead of the Texans come April, just behind the Lions, or maybe even in front of the Lions, depending on what they do over their last 4 games. Now, looking at some betting trends, the Jags are 4-9 against the spread this year, but just 1-5 at home. So 3-4 on the road for the Jaguars, 1-5 at home. Not that great of a record for the Jaguars on home turf. And they've only been favored one time this year, which came week 1 at Houston, where they were favored by 3.5, and they lost by 16 points. So I don't know what to expect in this game when it comes to that statistic. The Houston Texans are 5-8 against the spread, but just 2-4 on the road. So both these teams have played better opposite of where they are this week. Texans 2-4 on the road. When it comes to the over-under is 39.5. I don't know if that's going to move. If it does, I would imagine it's going to decrease towards the 39, 38.5 number, because over the last 13 games, the 13 games this season for the Jags have hit the under 11 times and only hit the over 2 times. So they're 2-11 in favor of the under, and the Texans are 5-8 in favor of the under in their 13 games. So all signs are pointing to a low-scoring game going back to those points per game statistics. However, both defenses have shown to be a little bit shaky. When it comes to Sunday's game against the Texans, I expect this to be an extremely low-scoring game. I expect the Jaguars and Texans total to be under. The Jaguars team total under should be under as well. But I expect the Jaguars to win this game 17-16. And I say that for a few reasons, but the main reason is Urban Meyer is gone. This team will be motivated to put on for its home crowd because fans show up for the team and not the coach. And these players want to prove to these fans that it is worth showing up for on Sundays to support the Jacksonville Jaguars, no matter who the head coach is, but show up to support these players. And I think that's what the fans are going to do on Sunday. They have a good, favorable matchup against the Texans. I think Trevor Lawrence will have some favorable play calling. I think James Robinson should get over 20 carries as well as over 100 yards. I'm excited to see him put in some work this Sunday against the Texans. But other than that, nothing going on in this game. No other real storylines. But I hope you enjoyed this Jaguars-Texans preview. Please subscribe to the channel. Please follow us on your preferred podcast streaming platform. Good riddance to Urban Meyer, and go make this world a better place.